Now, before we start the video, I'd like to give you a little history on the idea of electronically controlled pneumatic brakes, otherwise known as ECP. The concept came about around 1991, and it was put into a test application in 1993 on the BN Beardstown line on a 65-car coal train. And they ran that train for 2 years and wrung out the system and made changes and improvements. And in 1995, they had sufficient confidence in the system to equip 25 TTX 5-well intermodal cars. And they ran a intermodal train between Chicago and LA on numerous occasions with tremendous success. The main difference between traditional air brakes and ECP brakes is that the brake pipe on the train is nothing more than a charging source for the air reservoirs. The automatic brake remains in release the entire time, and the brake commands are sent by a box on the locomotive through a cable that runs from car to car throughout the entire train. Every car on the train applies simultaneously, instantaneously, which greatly reduces slack action. The same thing goes with a release. When a release is commanded, the head car and the rear car of the train release at almost exactly the same time, which is a tremendous reduction in brake shoe wear and overall in-train forces. There's many advantages to ECP. Constant reservoir charging is one of them. As soon as a brake command is issued and the brake cylinder reaches the desired pressure, those reservoirs start to recharge right away, even though there's a brake application in effect. Your constant reservoir charging just eliminates the possibility of you using all your air up. Another tremendous advantage to ECP braking is the graduated release. Freight trains never had a graduated release capability before until now. With traditional braking, once the brakes were released, they were fully released. There was no releasing it in steps, but with ECP, on any kind of freight train, coal, grain, or intermodal, the engineer now has the ability to graduate a little bit of release, which is a tremendous and probably the biggest advantage to ECP braking. So with the instant application on every car at the train at the same time, instant releasing of the brakes at the same time, the graduated release capabilities, ECP braking is a huge improvement over the way we used to do it. So now that you know a little bit about the system, let's go for a ride. Keep in mind this was shot with a VHS camcorder. That was high-tech back then, and I was in a working environment, so no time to set up tripods or steady the shots. So the jerky video is just how it is when you're riding a freight train. All right, here we go. 3rd of June, and it's 6:32 p.m. We're leaving Golden, British Columbia on the very first ECP Wireline Distributed Power train. And we're getting out of town and going to do some videotaping. Spent the last week or so in these just absolutely gorgeous mountains in this whole area here. It's just everywhere you look, it's mountains all over. And so we're finally getting on the road again. Well, here's probably the best seat in the house. The 66 is nice and everything, but you just get to see a lot more from from this here unit, the trailing unit. We've got the 9539 up on the leader. This is the 9530 that we're sitting on. Of course, the 66 is in between the two. And we've got the 9546 back in the train as a remote. All of this stuff is the brakes and the remote unit is all being controlled by wireline. It's the first. It's never been done before. I suppose you can hear the motors winding down there. He just made an ECP brake application. like to get a feel for how the brakes behave. We just left Golden, British Columbia, so the crew's probably been at the throttle of this train or at the operation of this brake system for maybe 10 minutes at the most. So they're doing a little experimentation. From the vestibule of the 66. It's just unbelievable scenery. The train is operating fine. Here's the bay window of the 66. It's a bay window passenger car. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but sometimes there's some relaxation involved. What that laptop is doing is monitoring our cars back there in the train. So every car that's back there, we can see how it's doing, how it's behaving, how its brakes are working. Don't have to be up on the locomotive to see it. You can be back here and watching everything going on back here. Good morning. It's 7:43 a.m. We are at the Green Hills mine in British Columbia. And we are loading our train. Train's almost loaded, about 3/4 of the way loaded. But it's kind of interesting that we could be pulling from this end and having that end move over there. It's all one piece, all one train. Well, we got the empties going in. And the loads coming out. These are all transfer points on the conveyor belt. They actually get the coal from way up there. They mine it on the other side of the hill, belt it up to that point, and then belt it down this side. And then belt it up there, and then they load the train with it. And we finally get a chance to see our remote. First time this trip we really had a chance to take a look at it. And like I said earlier in this tape, the remote's being controlled by the same wire that controls the electronic air brakes. So it's no longer a radio control unit. But if you want to think of it as a long MU cable that runs the length of the train, much better reliability. No radio brakes going through mountains or tunnels or any of that stuff. So there's our remote way back there. Here's our lead consist. This is our this is the 9530 that I'm standing on. And then there's the 66, the home away from home, and the 9539 on the point. Like I said, the remote number was 9546. And there's our last car. You don't get a chance to see the last car in your train from the locomotives as close as you can here, but we don't have too much more to go to load this train, and we'll be heading down the mountain. We're way up there in the mountains right now. And once we get her loaded, it's serious downgrade, like 2%. for quite a long time, so that makes the ECP brakes all that much more appealing, and the crews just love it. And there's the last car in our train. All right, we're out of the mine. It's 8:55 a.m., 8:55 a.m. And we're getting underway. Just about to head down to 2%. And I'm back here on the 9530. The cab is full of people who want to see the system, so I've seen it many times. But I am keeping tabs on things. Not about to go down 2% without having some kind of indication as to what's happening with the train. And the train's looking good right now. And down we go. No dynamics yet, but we do have 21 pounds in the target pressure for the brake cylinders, and all the cars are behaving, so it'll be interesting to see if they want to do something weird like go down the mountain with no dynamics. Anyway, we do have a brake application in effect, as indicated by our target pressure right there at 21. It means we want 21 pounds in the brake cylinder. And if you look over at the 1, 2, 3, 4th column from the right, you'll see that just about every car is at 21. Needless to say, this is quite heavy grade. Quite the mountainous terrain. Got about 17,000 tons. And I don't know if you can hear the brakes. I can hear the brake shoes. Still not in any dynamics yet. Coming up on the Spring Creek mine. Yeah, looks like they got a train down there. Well, here's our train at Fort Steele. We're waiting for a crew. Okay, we're going to give you a little tour of the 66. It's 9:59 p.m. on the 4th of June 1999, and we're looking out the BN door towards the lead unit, the 9539. So let's take a little look at the 66. We're the only ones in it right now, and good opportunity to do it. It's a mechanical car, so there's a lot of workbenches and cool stuff to get kind of mean and nasty work done, you know, down and dirty stuff, hard hats, and a lot of work gets done in this car. So there's one of many workbenches. There's all our ECP stuff here inside the door. The big boxes are bottled drinking water, and then more of our tools. And then walking into the car, we've got the equipment rack. Let's go down the nuts and bolts side first. This is where I spend most of my time here. This is one of the bay windows that's on the engineer's side. And I watch my laptop for the cars, the electronic cars, and monitor their performance. So I spend a lot of time at that particular chair. But on this side of the car, or at least this instrument rack, this is the stuff for drawbar testing and drawbar forces and stuff. We're not using that. But another workbench, another bay window on the conductor's side. Got my battery light on, so we may have to end this tour early. Walking down the hallway, we got the another workbench, which we've been using rather extensively. And then the kitchen area, which is quite functional. Microwave, a nice Genair grill, kitchen table, refrigerator. Please keep the car clean, of course. That's always an important thing. Quite nice. And then we walk down the hallways to the living quarters. And we'll just kind of look in each one of these here. There's one room. There's only 3 bedrooms on the car. Well, good morning. It's 11:03 p.m. We're going to stay on Mountain Time. However, we're making our way towards the Pacific. We're in western British Columbia now. And the thought the trip was just going to go to the mine and back to Golden, but that all changed. So needless to say, we've got some gorgeous western British Columbia scenery to look at. And we're going all the way to Vancouver. Well, here we are climbing up towards Kamloops, British Columbia at 12:04 p.m. We're going to end up going over our train right up there. There's our remote. Working just as hard as these lead units. That's where we just were. We just went under that tunnel a little while ago. Don't know if we're going to be able to see the rear of our train or not. Tell you what, talk about getting your Okay, good morning. It's 11:40 a.m. 11:40, and we're along the Thompson River in western British Columbia. We just left Kamloops, and we sat in Kamloops for 24 hours, basically. They parked the train there. So we're underway again, heading for Roberts Bank in Vancouver, and we're running along the Thompson River, I believe it is. We'll verify that later on. But just incredible stuff. Incredible scenery here. You got Canadian National over there across the river, and in fact we're going to be over there in a little while. We're detouring. CP's got a bridge that's bad, So we'll be over there later on today. But for now, we're hugging the cliffs and just kind of running along the river on the CP side. Slowing down. Looks like we got a meet happening up there. Oh yeah. Well, it's hard to hold steady, but there's a CN train over there across the river. Running a lot of trains. We're on CN now, and we're heading over to the CN side. We'll see how the other half live. The river's running really fast here with all the melt off in the mountains. And the story goes that CN built their line later, after CP. So it's a little bit more rugged terrain on this side, but it's an easier grade. Relatively flat, where CP's got some areas where they climb up out of the river grade to get over the rough spots. something is running on CP.
Answering westbound out of Delaware. Yeah, Farmer Nichols, 9539 West. Instructions pertaining to your...
Okay, we are on the empties, and it's 5:06 p.m. We're back along the Thompson River Canyon, and we're on the empty train. We unloaded last night, at Roberts Bank, and so now we're heading empties, heading back towards Golden, and end of a trip, end of another excursion. A couple of things to note here, a couple of firsts. This is the first use of Wireline Distributed Power and ECP brakes on CP rail, and we are on CEN right now, and so this is also the first time an electronic air brake train has operated on Canadian National. So a couple of firsts. the grain trains don't go to Roberts Bank, they go to Vancouver, Port Coquitlam, and as a result, the damaged bridge doesn't affect them, so they're still running up there on CP. That's normally where we would be, but to get to where this train goes, you got to go over a bridge that was damaged. Had a barge run into it and screw it all up. So we're on Canadian National, that train's on Canadian Pacific.